said about racism not being genetic, I think that's, although it sounds obvious, I do think that there is some kind of programming that we have that, you know, people of whoever are like predisposed to look down on Black people. And, you know, this whole thing that somebody else was mentioning, I think it was you, Habib, about, you know, this, it's now like a construct that Black is always at the bottom. And in fact, Imani mentioned I found a very, I have to say, I really contracted when you said that. In every single society around the whole world, Black is the bottom, Black is looked down on, etc. I pray that that's not the case. I know certainly back home where I grew up in Zimbabwe, it's not the case. I'm hoping that it's the case across Africa as well, inshallah. But my point is that it is genetic. As you said, it's not genetic, it's something learned. It's a social construct, and those social constructs can be deconstructed. We've deconstructed so many other things already, literally in the past 100 years as a society, as we know, on lots of different spheres. So I pray that, inshallah, this is something as well that will no longer be socially acceptable. Because I think that's the issue, isn't it? Is that this prejudice always exists, but prejudice can cease to become socially acceptable if, you know, society is going towards that, and if there is enough conversation, if there is enough awareness, and if there is enough legislation, etc., etc., certain prejudices they cease to become socially acceptable. Okay, so Boonaa, then Munaa, go for it, brother, inshallah.
Yes, Jazakumullah khairan to all of the speakers, people who have spoken before me. You know, opportunities like this, I think sometimes we take for granted, but it was really refreshing for me to hear so many, you know, different opinions and so many strong voices that rejuvenate my, you know, strife to help, you know, put myself in a position where I can help affect change in my community and in the world around me. And I think, you know, the beginning of the conversation, sister asked a very important question, or the question was posed. As Mehmet asked, you know, do you think that this situation with George Floyd and with the people that have recently been killed, do you think this will be a catalyst for some type of larger lasting change? And to be honest, in the beginning of the conversation, I didn't really know how to answer. I thought, well, maybe, I don't really know. But one thing that's come around back to me just through the course of this conversation is something that I've always kind of thought anyways, but I think it's been more reinforced, is that especially as Black Muslims, as people that live in the Western part of the world, you know, whether it's Canada, the US, UK, Europe, I think we have a genuine opportunity to pioneer a truly unique and diverse form of Islam. I think having people that are grown up around diverse communities, having opportunities of having real meaningful relationships with people from different parts of the world, I think truly this is planting seeds in people who, when they get older, literally cannot have these types of beliefs and prejudice. I don't think that it's fair to say, you know, the older generations, my parents' generation, I don't think maybe they'll change overnight. And this is not to say that, you know, they're unfixable or those types of generations, there's nothing we can do about them. But I genuinely think that the prejudice and bias that existed in our parents' generation, it has to die. And I think it will die either when they die or when we decide to kill it. When we decide to truly destroy that evilness inside of people that makes them feel superior. And I take this work very serious because I genuinely think I'm doing this to save you. I'm doing this to help you. As the Prophet ﷺ taught us, that the person, you know, whoever has an atom's weight of arrogance in their heart, they will not enter Jannah. You're living a life where you really think you're the ish, like you really think you're better than someone. You really think that you have some type of superiority when every single one of us is from teen, is from dirt. Right? How ironic, subhanAllah. We all come from dirt, yet you think your dirt is better than mine. Ajib, subhanAllah. But what I think is powerful is the fact that, yes, there are many of our brothers and sisters, you know, Muslim people who are of color or, you know, varying shades of colors and browns and whatever, that definitely feel what we're going through. And I think there are many people that are genuine. I think there are a lot of people that I see that don't like this type of behavior and are willing to stand up for it. And I cannot see them in the future carrying these types of prejudice along. I don't see how you could live with me, grow up with me, have meaningful relationships with me. I know your family, you know my family, and then later on down the line, you tell me, oh, I don't want my son to marry your son. It's like, what? Like, you know what I mean? We were in the trenches together. So, but just that, I wanted to make that one point, and then this last point, and the sisters, the coaching family, mashallah, the whole entourage, one of the sisters brought up a very good point. which was about, and I know you're going to talk about it next week, but I wanted to just chime in now on it, is this idea of being Black in Islamic school or being Black in Muslim spaces. My children attend an Islamic school, and my daughter, who's 7 years old, came to me maybe 2 years ago when she was in kindergarten, and she told me that, and they're, mind you, like one of the only Black kids in this school, and she told me that one of the little girls didn't want to play with her because she was Black, right? And this is coming from a child who's South Asian or whatever. And I know her father, subhanAllah, big beard, masjid board member, everything. And I'm thinking to myself, subhanAllah, you know, where could your child possibly have learned this? That's another case. And I had a real thought in my mind with even with my wife, you know, I thought about this. I said, you know, is it better for our children to be exposed to racism in a non-Islamic environment where we can pass it off, as the sister said, we can pass it off as this is the behavior of people who don't know any better, versus experiencing racism in an Islamic environment where we all are saying La ilaha illallah, where this child is doing a book presentation on Bilal, and then the next moment later, their mom is saying whatever curse word in her language against Black people, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we had to make a conscious decision about where, it's kind of sad, but where do we want our children to experience racism? These are the decisions that we need to make. And I thought to myself, you know what? I want to keep my children in that Islamic school, and I want her peers, the kids that she's around, to see me every day, to see me that I'm active, I'm a part of the school environment. Oh, I go to all the field trips, I'm the one bringing donuts, I do all that fun stuff, right? And I want these children to have that experience of being with Black children, Black Muslim children, so that then when they grow up, they cannot hold those prejudice. It would be virtually impossible for them to dig deep inside themselves and find that hate, because they have been surrounded by positive examples. And I think that's what we are as Muslims in the West. We are, and inshallah, we will be a shining example of Islam and of resistance and of holding on to this deen as we've been doing for generations, you know? And I think with that, hopefully, inshallah, it's a long bet, but hopefully we can change the minds of the people that will come down the line, your children and my children. This attitude of prejudice, of bias, of anti-Blackness, it will cease to appear, and it'll be something we'll joke about maybe in Jannah, you know, oh, remember when you guys used to be racist? That was funny, right? But hopefully, inshallah, that attitude will be gone. And I hope that, you know, I pray that for my children and your children and all the kids and the parents that are watching, that we can do this work now. That I know it seems frustrating. I know for myself, I get down a lot of the times and I feel very discouraged, but I have hope, inshallah, that things can change in the future, inshallah.
Thank you so much for that. And definitely, guys, if you've enjoyed this, then I hope that you signed up to come next week. I really do pray I'm able to assemble another amazing group of people, maybe some who were here to talk about raising Black Muslim children, and ideas about, for example, because I saw in the chat there were those who agreed with Brother Boonaa that it's worth the sacrifice almost to see the success in the long term. So we're gonna go through the pain of this in order to teach the next generation better. And then others who said, oh, it's not worth it, I'm not doing it, I'm out. So the secessionists versus the integrationists, I guess we can have that conversation next week. But inshallah, I'm going to go to Muna and then Obaid. And then let me know, panelists, if you have anything that you want to say to wrap up, because we have been on this for 2.5 hours, mashallah. But I'm sure I've seen somebody who said they could literally sit and listen to this all day. And I co-sign that, because I'm still not tired, but I realize that people need to go and pray, and it's 12:30 midnight here. So mashallah. Go ahead, Sister Muna.
Thank you very much. It's been amazing, subhanAllah, like every single person who has contributed with their thoughts, their experiences, their knowledge. It's been incredible. I feel extremely uplifted, and just I have a certain sense of clarity that I didn't have before we had this conversation. So alhamdulillah for this, and thank you, sis, for organizing it. So I've kind of just summarized. The question for me is, how can we maximize this moment? Like, how can we make use of the social media runnings of the Black Lives Matter movement, of everybody trying to jump on the bandwagon, whether it's just a matter of being on trend, or if they're genuinely, sincerely, really wanting to actually engage in the conversations and the narratives behind the Black Lives Matter movement. There's a lot of talk right now about justice. You know, there's the verse that I'm sure everybody has seen at some point within the social media handles, "O you who believe, be persistently standing firm in justice and witnesses for Allah." I think that's an incredibly strong verse that we need to start to internalize and start to dissect and understand what is standing firm in justice. How does that look like in the 21st century? How does it look like in 2020 COVID crisis? What does standing firm in justice actually look like? And for me, at this moment in time, as a documentary photographer, my impact is through visual media, and I always aspire to use visual media and words in order to inspire social change. Alhamdulillah, I've managed to do a certain amount with using photography and the power of words in order to move people into action. And I think we don't realize perhaps how much we have within us to actually move others and to positively impact the people that we know and the people who follow us and who are associated with us. I am calling upon everybody to see themselves as influencers to a certain extent. I do believe, actually, to a certain extent, we do have some sort of responsibility to, at the very least, uphold our Islamic characteristics and to educate ourselves, if not educating others and standing up for others. But at the very least, we should find our internal power and our strength within Islam, within reading, within understanding, within engaging in conversations like this in order to truly find our path in these difficult times. So really and truly, you know, there's a lot of conversations right now on Instagram, especially about the involvement of influencers and to what extent should influencers be talking about the Black Lives Matter movement, whether they, you know, should they really be engaging in it? Should they be posting normal things? And I think people are kind of getting caught up with everything around that. And I think it's important that we don't miss out the point, which is right now we are literally amidst a revolution which can potentially be extremely positive and can move us in the right direction of change, inshallah. All we have to do is kind of maintain our positivity, as difficult as it is, as much as it shakes up within us all of the traumas and all the experiences that we've been through growing up until now, and seeing everything kind of unfolding before our eyes. And yes, we were not prepared for this, but it is about kind of feeling that strength in the trust that Allah does not burden a soul more than it can bear. This trust that every single hardship that we go through, Allah will reward it. And then finding our strength and power in that, inshallah. So I kind of just want to leave you guys with that, and, you know, tawakkal ala Allah, like have trust in Allah, have trust in the fact that He will guide us through it. And as much as we are at times losing hope and we're losing light, inshallah, we find the light within us and we find that strength within us, and we continue kind of doing our part to the best of our ability, inshallah. So thank you so much, Sis Naima. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I was so nervous. I was very, very nervous of being here, but I chose to come here because I feel like this is me doing my part, inshallah, and I hope that Allah accepts from all of us all the efforts that we put in, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, sis, mashallah. Yeah, the issue of influencers is a very interesting one, definitely one I would like to discuss in future conversations. I think it's really important, inshallah, I keep using this term, get the memo, right? Because history repeats itself until you get the memo. So everybody here, in every situation, COVID is no exception. COVID taught us a lot of things about ourselves, about our families, about our homes, you know, what's really important, who is really important, you know, for a society to progress, you know, who matters, etc. And similarly with this, you know, to see who will stand up for justice, who cares more about you know, aligning themselves with, you know, what is on trend, or who doesn't want to lose favor with certain people or whatever, you know, who is for you, I guess, who is for you. And so I really hope that we don't forget the lessons of COVID, and we don't forget the lessons of this particular time, and go back to business as usual. Even like, you know, once structural change, you know, like laws and that kind of thing may happen, but people, we need to get the memo as individuals in order to make change, literally individual by individual, household by household, regardless of what's happening out in the world, because every one of us is an agent for change. So I'm going to go to, inshallah, my son, Ubaid, who has been patiently waiting to get a chance to chime in. So Ubaid, take the mic, my dear.
Yeah, so personally, I believe that these riots and protests have mostly been directed towards the institution and directed towards the government's effect on the Black community, and how they have disproportionately like targeted the Black community in their oppression. So I feel like these riots, this outrage is directed towards them. Don't think that this is necessarily directed towards each individual as we'd hope. Like, I don't think this is directed towards necessarily racism itself, because racism will still linger on like throughout a long period of time, and it'll take us a lot of time to dismantle this like long history of racial biases, racial profiling, and bad viewpoints towards Black people. But this outrage at the moment should be directed towards the system. And if we dismantle the racist system that has, the racial biases towards people of color and Black people specifically, then we can go on to target the racism itself, and just, you know, racial profiling and the way that people view Black people in that sense. So I feel like, inshallah, if we can have these laws, like actual like laws that will properly be able to help Black people in this time, then of course, because I view US as one of the biggest perpetrators of institutional racism, other countries will follow suit, and then inshallah we'll be able to target racism itself and try to dismantle all of these bad preconceptions that people have with Black people and all these kind of stuff. So inshallah, that's, yeah.
Ubaid, I have a question for you before you go, if everybody will indulge me. I think you might be the youngest person here. How old are you?
17.
All right, if anybody is younger than Ubaid, put it in the chat, please. I want to see if you are the youngest person here. But do you think that, firstly, do you think that you benefited from this gathering?
Oh yeah, definitely, because, you know, when it comes to Islam and race in that sense, I'm not that very well versed, because I haven't been to that many. I've been to a few, but I haven't been to that many. You know, like Islamic conferences and stuff like that, where I can indulge that much with other Islamic people who are not Black, or like people who have not been around me. So I haven't been able to like really know like what it's like to have like be prejudiced, have like experience prejudice from other Muslims. So like to hear people's like experiences and stuff like that has been really eye-opening.
Thank you. And do you think that more young people should take part in conversations like this?
I feel like definitely they should, because it's definitely their future. Like, they will be the ones that will be making the change. They need to learn because if you don't learn from the past, then you'll never really move forward. So I feel like they need to learn from the elders and the people who have experienced this racism before, and realize we need to make a change on what we need to make a change on specifically, so that we can target it and like dismantle it. Because if we don't learn from the people who have experienced it, then we're just going to experience it again, and then the cycle will just continue. So yeah.
And just lastly, before you go, I have a question to you, like as your mother. Obviously, you know, your dad was from Ghana. We're very close to our Ghanaian family, and you know, you've been to Ghana several times. You know, you're enmeshed with that. You grew up in Egypt, and then you kind of came back to England, to West Yorkshire. And I think that was your first time experiencing kind of overt racism, wasn't it? That was like your first encounter with sort of racism. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Now, for you as a young Black male and a Muslim, and obviously you've been hearing all the conversations that are happening, you've been very active on TikTok and lots of other places, kind of, you know, debating with people. How do you feel?
I feel like I wouldn't be able to properly speak for Black people, and especially African Americans, because they will have a completely different experience to me. I wouldn't even be able to grasp the kind of like fear that they are feeling right now, especially in this certain political climate. But in England, we still have racism, and it's still very much there. And this is what's different from Britain and America in my, like, from my view, is that America's institution and people is targeted towards Black people. In Britain's, on the other hand, it's kind of like under the rug, but people still have that same racial profiling and preconceptions on Black people that is widespread across the world. And I've definitely experienced this with, like, you know, like casual racism and stuff like that. And it recurs a lot. And like, I remember one of the panelists mentioned how, like, across the world, Black people are viewed as the bottom. And I feel like in England, like, people don't think they're racist, but in hindsight, they actually are. Like, they generally have bad preconceptions of Black people. So compared to America, where obviously, because the institution and the system is extremely racist, which is a huge problem, that's what they're dealing with, and then they can move on to deal with the people. In Britain, it's more, we need to have like these discussions about Black people and about like what people truly think about Black people, and then we can dismantle it in that way, rather than like in America how the institution is racist. Because in England we have a lot of racial profiling, like a lot. Like, for example, Black people are 7 times more likely to be stopped for a stop and frisk. So it just shows how, even though the system may not have any de facto laws against Black people, it still has quite a few de jure laws that like disproportionately affect Black people. So yeah, definitely. I feel like it's widespread. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just want to thank you for letting me put you on the spot like that. Jazakallah khair. And thank you everybody else for being so patient with us as well, mashallah, as a family, because I feel like, for me, my concern for my children, and you guys know this if you follow me on Instagram and you've been watching my videos and listening, for me, my main concern is my children and their mental and emotional well-being and their sense of self. And we'll get to talk about that next week, inshallah, because I think that, you know, these types of things can be traumatic. It's like Boonaa mentioned it, Imani mentioned it, a lot of people mentioned this kind of almost a generational trauma that's passed down. If you or your parents and your grandparents have experienced racism or have experienced discrimination, have experienced oppression, then you're carrying that. And then of course, add to the fact that our children see themselves reflected back through the media, in film, in music, in the newspaper, on social media. And Obaid, for example, I know from my children, you know, the outward and very, very virulent racism on apps like TikTok, on YouTube, it's right in their faces. So even I'd love to have a conversation speaking to that, about how do we preserve their sense of self and their sense of self-worth and sense of confidence in who they are as young Black people in this world. So thank you so much for that. Jazakallah khair, Obaid. Okay, and the last person to speak is going to be Miss Rahma. Then we're going to wrap up, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, and go sis.
Jazakallah khair for allowing me to speak. I'm very fortunate to talk about after your son talked. For me, it's such a surreal moment because I watch you and have this conversation with your son, and I imagine myself one day watching my son talk about these things. I'm very passionate about having these conversations with my children. I feel that as a Black Muslim woman, we don't have the luxury of not having these conversations at home. I remember vividly when my daughter was 4 years old, she experienced an act of racism right in front of my face, and I've had to have that conversation with her at that age. So it's important to note that they're never too young to talk about racism and race and the differences and the struggles that they're going to have to go through. And it's important to know that even though like you might want to shelter them, but they are going to experience it. And I've seen that myself, where when I say that she was 4 years old, she didn't have the language to express what she was talking about, but she internally had feelings of being excluded due to her skin color. So my work is, you know, I don't have, like, I've expressed that I have difficulties with knowing that it is an exhaustive type of, you know, work to do, but focusing on the children, like you said, Naiba, children we need to bolster their sense of self-confidence. And the first place that starts is they need to be represented. They need to see themselves, and they need to see themselves in a place of power. They need to see themselves in a place of success. If they don't see books where there are the heroes, then they will never see themselves as being the heroes. So for me, that's very important. I think Brother Boonaa has expressed the fact of the struggles that we Black Muslim parents have to go through with Islamic schools. It's a difficult decision that we've had to make. It's funny that we have two type of people. We have people that have decided to put their children in the Islamic schools because they don't want, growing up like myself, I was discriminated because, you know, I was wearing the hijab. I wasn't, my teachers didn't understand about Ramadan, about my need to pray, and it made it very difficult. So having the opportunity now to send my children into an Islamic school is, there's two struggles. I'm being oppressed because I'm Black and also because I'm Muslim. So one of them could have been addressed by sending her to an Islamic school, and that some of us make that choice. Unfortunately, if those schools are not diverse and inclusive, then they experience racism and prejudice due to the fact of their skin color. And now it's more intimate, like we've mentioned, because it's coming from our own community. And some of us are making the tough decision to put them in public school because they say that it's a more of an inclusive and diverse, you know, population. So it's, as a Black Muslim parent, it is difficult because we have these two struggles, both sides. We have struggles, and we have these difficult conversations that come about because of our both of these identities. Someone asked me, like, you know, are you Muslim first or Black first? I'm both at all time. God has chosen to put me in this Black body. He has chosen this religion for me. He makes no mistakes. I accept the decree of this creation, and I want my kids to be proud of that fact, that they were created with intention to be Black and to be Muslim. And I think it's important for that. So I look forward to next week's conversation where we can discuss further what we can do as Black Muslim parents in making sure that our children are equipped, because literally I say that I have to equip my children mentally, emotionally, and you know, in their spirit as well. They have to be equipped to know what they're gonna encounter.
MashaAllah, sis, Jazakallah khairan, 100%. I think you just summed it up. You know, are you Black first? Are you Muslim first? We're both, and we're blessed. Okay, and I'm gonna say that I don't care if anybody feels a particular way about it. Y'all can video it, y'all can put it live on IG. I don't care. I feel so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He made me Black, that He made my mother Black. My father's white, but we won't talk about him. Anyway, my mother is like your original, like, white African, white Pan-Africanist actually. But to my point, I was raised to see myself as Black. And I thank Allah for that. Just like anyone else can thank Allah for making them whatever they are, I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He made me the way that He did, that He gave me the parents that He did, that He allowed me to grow up in Africa and have Black children, because regardless of what the world says, we have something. There is something in us that is, it's irreplaceable, and it's, you know, you can try to bottle it up, you can try to brand it, you can try to sell it and market it, but at the end of the day, that essence is something that every Black person, I think, knows. And again, it could be the case in other races too, which is great. But I want to remember, and I want my children to know that about themselves. People use the term black girl magic, etc. But there's something, Allah created something special in us. I believe that. And I'm grateful to him that he put us on this earth just the way we are, to walk the walk that we're here to walk, to do the work that we're supposed to do. Because every people have challenges, and every people have, have challenges. Just like everyone has their own strengths, has their own weaknesses, every people as well has their own challenges, whether it's culturally, socially, whatever it is. So I just want to thank every single person who came here. I want to thank all my amazing guests, Brother Boonaa Mohammed, the coaches, now they're called the coaches, Brother Nazir, his wives Naila and Fatima, Brother Habib, Sister Hafsa, Sister Bilqis, Sister Rahma, Brother Muhammad, and then mashallah the people that I hounded on IG and got a late yes from, Brother Abdul-Wahid, mashallah, Sister Imani, Sister Muna, and Brother Michael and Ubaidullah. I just want to thank every single one of you for being here, for honoring us with your presence, mashallah. And everybody who was here, listening and taking part in the chat. Guys, please follow all these good people, mashallah. Amplify the voices that are so often silenced. Okay, I'm not going to say black voices. I'm going to say what I said. Amplify the voices of those who are often silenced or marginalized, because they have stories to tell too. And they have something to teach you, every one of us, okay? So amplify those voices, follow all these good people on social media, inshallah. And if this is your jam, if you enjoyed this, then please, inshallah, make sure that you signed up to join us next week. I pray, bi'idhnillah, Allah gives us tawfiq to come together again on a weekly basis, inshallah, to talk about some of these things. And yeah, you guys have just been amazing. When I thought about this idea, I had an idea of how it could be, but Allah knows that He brings about the results. So we plan, and then He brings it to fruition, and it's better than I even could have imagined. So thank you so much, guys. It's been amazing spending Friday night with you. Inshallah, hopefully we get to spend Friday nights together, in the future. And for now, please just make dua for everyone who's come on this panel. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us if anything was said that was incorrect, that was wrong. All good is from Him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and anything wrong, anything bad, any mistakes are from ourselves and from the shaitan. And may Allah bless you all with every khair. Subhanak Allahumma rabbana wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, wa astaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Enjoyed this conversation and you would like to become part of the Virtual Salon family, consider becoming a patron. From just £5 a month, you can get access to our chat community, to be invited to our live sessions, and get exclusive content that we only create for our patrons. Be part of the movement. Sign up on Patreon today.